Welcome back to the Let's Talk Vibes podcast, where we speak soul contracts, illuminating the path to higher understanding. This is going to be a great episode. We're diving into the strong, powerful energy of the 10-1, and we are joined by the very powerful, wonderful Gennye Lion Rainbow Anderzon. Hello, Gennye.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, Gennye is a mother of two, a healer, a psychic, a therapist, a thought leader. You are the founder of the Business Success, the Energetic Way, and the Visionary New Earth Leaders podcast. And I think the Visionary New Earth Leaders program that you have is actually so perfect with the 10-1 energy that we're going to get into today. Is there anything else that you would like our listeners to know about you before we dive into the 10-1 energy?
Well, not much more than what you said, really, but thank you for having me. I've been, doing my craft for the past sort of 23 years. So I started out as a therapist. I went into more deeper of healing and, deeper healing practices and divine healing and soul contracts and light body and all the works, and then business mentorship and things like that. So it's kind of just evolved from being a therapist into a mentor or a business leader, a healer still. But that's what I do. Yeah. So
Yeah.
here I am.
And in your pre-spiritual life, you had was it a master's? I know you have a degree in marketing as well.
Yes. So I did marketing, sociology at university. So what happened at the time was that I was kind of more interested in traveling after I finished. So I never
I
actually,
love it.
I was like, I don't think I'm going to work in that agency, like, this marketing agency. I had some recommendations and I was like, I don't want to do marketing for like Coca-Cola. So I was like, I'm not doing that. So I went traveling and I thought, oh, that was a waste of time. But then obviously I have been using my marketing skills. I suppose what it is with marketing, I think this is a good thing to say actually. Marketing is a very intuitive gift. So once you learn marketing properly, just the nuts and bolts and really understanding it, then after that, it's like when you embody that, it becomes it's an intuitive gift. So here we are. I'm using it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Yana and I have both done business coaching for you. And, there's an entire aspect of the soul contract work that goes around with business. And so we already know we're going to have you back at another time where we have an
Yes.
episode dedicated to that. Because if we keep going down this conversation, it's going to
Yeah.
turn into an entire episode. So we'll
Exactly.
definitely have to do that at another time because there's so much to say, so much we've both learned from
Yeah.
you, so much wisdom you have to impart on that side.
Yeah.
Yana,
Thank you.
any thoughts on that before we do dive into our 10-1 today?
No, I think you wrapped it up beautifully. And it's funny because Gennye, we were in your content party. No, was it content party? Yes.
Soulfire,
Yes,
wasn't it? Oh no,
No, it was
Soulfire.
no, I was in Soulfire.
but
Yeah,
I
you and
did content
Lauren
Soulfire.
and I
party.
did content party.
Mm.
And I think it was like the first meeting, and people are like talking, and then one member starts speaking, and Lauren and I would just look at each other and we're like, oh my God, 15-6. Oh my God. Like we were like right away, it was like the frequencies were popping out. Was it the
Yeah.
15-6? So we got on,
Yeah.
and Gennye, said it like not even like a minute after. We were like cracking up. But that's what happens when you dig into the soul contract stuff and when
Yeah.
you embody
Yeah.
it. And it's like people speak and you just feel their energy and you just see these numbers coming at you. And one of, I guess, all of our favorites, and I know we all have this 10-1 in our soul contract chart.
Yes.
For me, it is in my physical goals of my birth name, but then
Mm-hmm.
also in different placements throughout all my common names and optimized name and all of that. And it
Mm.
shows up differently, so differently for all of us. And I know we only even know just a little bit. We're going to get into that. But let's get into the 10-1, right?
Yeah.
That
Amen.
10-1 is that beautiful natural healers, this connection to source, right? It's like natural healer, service to others,
Mm.
unity, power, like all these key words that really kind of embody what this energy
Mm-hmm.
is,
Mm,
right? So,
absolutely. Mm.
so let's expand on that. Gennye,
Yes.
okay, when you think of 10-1, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
So I see it's like stability and like direct connection to source. It's like super channel. That's what I see. And I see leadership because that's what I work with. So for me, you know, through my lens, you know, but obviously, yes, people with 10-1, they can be good bosses or bad ones because misuse of power, right?
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I
that
see. Mainly, as in, look, there's so many other facets of it, but
of
to me,
course.
it means that it's a channel, service, integrity, stability, leadership. Like it's the masculine, right? But that's how it shows, and that's how I hold my business. I think I hold my business like that, actually,
Yeah.
with that, a
For
lot with that
me,
energy. Yeah.
I feel like it depends on where this is showing up. So, like, if this is
Sure.
showing up in someone's physical karma, my first thought is, did they have a father wound, right? This is what
Yeah.
one of the things that we associate so much with the 10-1. You know, when we had our 13-4 episode, we talked about potential mother wounds. So the
Mm.
10-1 is that potential father wound.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about how very often, if it's in physical karma, that does manifest as father abandonment, the father
Mm.
abandoning the family. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen this in clients as, yes, their father left the family. Maybe parents got divorced, moved across the country, something like that, or
Mm.
maybe even passed away. So just left in that sense.
Mm.
So that's one of the first things that will come to mind for me if I see it in that position. But
Mm.
when I just think about the number generally, yeah, definitely the integrity, the being of service, the very high frequency, those are kind of
Mm.
some of what I think of generally for the number. But
Mm.
in that physical karma position, it's that father
Yeah.
wound and the abandonment that I think
Yeah.
of.
And the disempowerment, you know,
Yes.
Mhm.
this is blocked power, isn't it? When it's in the karma. Mm. Mm. Yeah.
Now, the father wound, I will say, 9 out of 10 times, regardless of the placement where I see it, there is that aspect of the father wound. Now, I'll say
Mm.
for me, in my situation, let's get into it. My parents got divorced when I was 6. I was a mama's girl from like day one. As long as I can remember, I was attached to her hip. And when we lived in Greece and when they got divorced, my mom took us 3 kids and we came to the States, to America. And so I did not see my dad again until I was 19.
Oh.
And, you know, we spoke on the phone. But for me, at that age, I never felt like I missed out on my dad because I was so young that I never felt that abandonment or that separation. And it wasn't until my early 30s. I was talking to my one girlfriend on the phone and she says, "Oh my God, I got a flat tire. I have to call my dad because, you know, my dad will take care of it." Okay. So we get off the phone and I thought to myself, if I got a flat tire, who would I call? And it was that first time where I ever felt like that missing father in my life.
Mm.
And it almost hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, I don't know what it's like to have a father take you to the daddy-daughter dance or to help, you know, be a shoulder to cry on or to help you fix something around your house. I didn't know any of that. And what happened for me was when I was 19 and I first saw my dad, I'm a spitting image of my mother. And
Mm.
back then, this was many years ago, back then, the first time he saw me at 19 years old was about the age where they got married. And I think for him, he was still so much in his wounded, hurt from the whole situation. And seeing me was like seeing my mother in his face again. And it was
Mm.
really hard for us to connect. And I remember going, oh, if I never see this man again, I'll be okay. And it wasn't until I was getting married that him and I rebuilt this beautiful relationship. But we had to come to a place where he let go of his ego, I let go of my hurt and my own shit. And we were able to connect in this beautiful, authentic way where
Mm.
today, because I used to have moments where I had thought to myself, when the day comes where he passes away, how am I going to feel? And I felt very indifferent. And then today, if you ask me that question, I'm like, yeah, I'll be devastated.
Mm.
Like, that will be a very sad day. So it's like the way the father wound hit me was almost like I didn't even realize it until a ton of bricks hit me. And then I
Mm.
felt that complete disconnection, that sadness. So being able to heal that for me has been such a beautiful journey. Of course, there's
Mm.
so much to do, so much more to still heal and talk about. But being in the space I am today, I'm like, oh, I finally feel like I've healed that part of me, which, right, when you feel emotionally abandoned, physically abandoned, you haven't healed that, you're also attracting partners who are giving you that same, you're having that same interaction, right? That abandonment, that emotional disconnection, that like, I can't be there for you. So what do? I run. So it like, until I was able to heal that, I realized that all those patterns were repeating for me in my life,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and
I
it's
mean, look,
like,
I think that's the typical healing journey anyway. Like, we repeat the patterns until we start looking at and start healing everything. But when you said so I think exactly what you said is almost like something happens and then you go, oh God, how do I actually feel about that? So for me, I had my soul contract reading in 2008, I think, or 2009. No, 2008. And Nicholas did it. And he told me about my father wound. And I was like, I don't have one.
right.
I was like, I'm all right. So check this out. So physical karma 7s. So I'm like, I'm fine. Right. And then he goes 10-1 in the spiritual karma is my father wound. So I'm like, no, I'm okay. I love my dad. We're really close. He's like, no, but let's talk about this. And I was like, okay, all right, we can. So so he was okay. I spoke to him about it. So the way it really played out for me, I think, was more so my mum and dad did divorce when I was 1. So yes, he did leave, but I hated being away from him. He saw me regularly, but I was, every time he left, which was like every 2 weeks, because you had shared sort of, custody. Well, not shared, but he had me sometimes. This is what I discovered. We opened that wound every time, me and him. And one part of the healing was, so he would take me to nursery, to daycare after the weekend. And this I can't remember, but it feels like in my body I can remember it. I loved my dad. Like I loved him so much. He would leave me there and I would scream like somebody's murdering me, because I knew he'd be gone. It makes me upset now. That he'd be gone for 2 weeks. And then he felt the same. He said, I was never okay until the Tuesday. He was like, the whole Monday was like a wipeout. And then I wasn't okay until Tuesday. What kind of okay? And that was so I feel very upset when I talk about this, because I'm like, in my body can remember it, right? That he abandoned me every 2 weeks. Not by yes, by choice, but not by choice.
Right.
If you see what I mean. Yeah. It's like, so that was so interesting to actually go, it's okay, I can heal this. But understanding that trauma, that abandonment trauma, was really important. And what happened was, I could see in my life looking back. So in 2008, I was 34. I could look back at my life and say, well, I can see now how me having that lack of masculine structure in my life made me really self-sufficient and really independent, and really very much like, don't tell me what to do. Like literally 10-1, do not, like, I decide. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm the boss. So I could see how that shaped my ferocious independence. And my mum was always supportive, but yeah, so that's just like another, we can go in more, I can talk more about my dad, but there was lots of other things for the 10-1. I think actually he had a spiritual karma 10-1 as well.
Oh, wow.
So that was really interesting, because did he have a 10-1, or maybe spiritual goal? I can't remember, but he had it somewhere. But yeah, I had to have a look at his chart really. But yeah, so I mean, look, we can carry on talking with this. There's more. I'll let you say something, Lauren, but there's more things to say about the
Well,
10-1. Yeah.
it's interesting because the 10-1 is a number that sort of has these little associations with it. Like it's known as being the divorce number. So it's interesting. All three of us have 10-1. All three of us have divorced
Divorced
parents.
parents, yeah.
Right. And Yana, it would be interesting. I don't know if you've looked at your parents' charts. Like, do they have 10-1s? Right. Because then they are also the ones who got divorced. Well, the 10-1, the one is that divine masculine energy. And then we
Mm.
look at the 10 as the 1 and the 0. We see it as actually being the ambiguity of, the gendered ambiguity, the androgynous nature of spirit.
Mm.
And so it's said that this is found commonly within the queer community, that because they maybe are playing with the roles of gender or playing with their own gender identity, they'll have a
Yeah.
10-1. So for myself, it's really interesting because I have lesbian parents, right? They each have a 10-1. They got, I mean, not officially divorced because gay marriage wasn't legal at the time, but they got divorced. And they each have their own father abandonment issues. So I'm just like, it is so interesting. And
Mm.
then, if you think about it, in my case, of course, I kind of look at it differently. Like that wasn't the role that my donor, right? My father was meant to play. But at the same time, so I don't think of it as abandonment. Like that was just never the designated role. But at the same
Absence,
time, there's
just absence
exactly
of a male person.
exactly. So
Yeah.
there's the absence. So it's like I
Yeah.
relate to the absence. And especially Yana, when you talked about that moment with your friend where she was like, oh, flat tire, I'm gonna call my dad. The moment that I always think of is realizing that, oh, I'm really noticing I don't have a father, is I was in 7th grade sitting with my friends at lunch and they were talking about like the weird things their dads do. Like, oh, it's so embarrassing. My dad does blank. And it was like the first time ever that I was just like, oh, I can't participate in this conversation because it is specifically about fathers. I mean, think about teenage girls or preteen girls. We talk a lot
Mm.
about our moms. I had a lot to say on those conversations. But this was specifically, oh, my dad is so embarrassing because, and I was like, oh,
Wow.
nothing for me to say here.
Mm.
Hi.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, when you say those things, like what's really interesting here is, so I have a 10-1 spiritual karma. Then my daughter, so she has very similar numbers to me. And I think, so she was born 2009. Yes. So I hadn't learned this system. So she just got a name, right?
Of
Right.
course.
Of course. And she has got 3 10-1s in her
Oh,
chart. So ascended master energy.
yes.
There's 3 10-1s. So she has a 10-1 in, let me think. She's got a spiritual karma like me. So we have a clash there. And then, so you'd think, so I think she has it in physical karma. No, in physical, no, she has in physical talent. And then she has it in physical karma too, I think. So she's
Oh,
had a
wow.
lot of
Both of
bullying
her
issues.
karmic placements.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah. So her journey is all about coming into full sovereignty, full power. She is very, very sensitive. She's got 5s and 8s as well, but she's very, very sensitive. And we have this clash, obviously, because 2 10-1s, right? So I have to be so conscious about the energies so that I don't push her away, because 10-1s push away, right? Because they feel, especially karmic clash, and it's like divorce. 2 10-1s in karmic positions, divorce, right? And I'm like, oh my God, my daughter's got this. So I am getting her on divine healing level 1 soon. Hopefully, she
Oh,
said already she wants to do it. She's only 14. She's allowed to
yeah.
go. She'd be 15 at a time. So Nicholas said he was the one suggesting it. And then that means that I can work on myself. She wants divine healing all the time. So she's all good to go. So what I'm looking at here, which is really interesting, is that we can transmute this so that it doesn't create that divorce. Like, I'm not going to,
Yeah.
disown my daughter. Do you know what I mean? That's just ridiculous. So I'm so aware of how those numbers has been placed there, because she is an ascended master, like truly a light worker, so she's going to
Mm.
do these things. But then at the same time, we as parent and mother, or was it mother and child, really have to work through those clashes. And yeah, I just have to be so aware, because obviously she doesn't know the system, and she can feel if something is off, but I'm the parent. So I'll have to always make sure it's okay. So I've learned so much about the 10-1, because I feel the triggers sometimes of wanting to push away, but instead I open my heart and 13-4, and I
Mm,
just love her instead. And that is like the magic, because Almira always said, any problems with 10-1s? Well, you just got to tap into the energy of 13-4 and just love, because they will just take off all the edges, take off all the, being obnoxious and really sort of strideful and angry, and, all the karmic, sort of energies of the 10-1. So it's really interesting, actually, how that is just playing out. She has an optimized name, but
Uh-huh.
nevertheless, the energies are those. So
right.
yeah, and I'm just like, oh my God, she's got a 10-1 spirit come. I don't want to divorce my husband ever. Like, I would never even think of it. I don't want her to be a divorced child. Like, oh my God, never been on the table ever. And I'm just like, but Nicholas is like, no, it's fine. It doesn't have to be that way.
That's
She's
right.
come
Right.
with those 10-1 frequencies that she's come in with, has got a different purpose than that.
Oh yeah.
And, you talk about it as ascended master. We also
Yeah.
say that when it's the 3 10 1s in a chart, that can be a sign of it being the final incarnation, which
Final
is
incarnation. Yeah.
incredible. And it makes you think, it's like, hey, if that's the case, it's like, it it's going to be a challenge, right? If this is the last one, it's like, what else is left to deal with? But
Yes.
also for yourself, right? Because when you have a clash, there can be friction there. And again, we're going to get to a point where we talk a lot more about the
Yeah. We can
relationships.
get deep. Another session, maybe another
Yeah.
podcast where we talk
But
about the clashes.
it's like it's also can be there for healing you. And that's again
Yes.
something I see for myself, right?
Mm.
I see how I have triggered my parents' father's wounds, but rather where they maybe didn't get healing. For one of my moms, her father died when she was either in her late 20s, early 30s. I forget exactly when.
Mm.
Um, and so it's like they didn't quite get that chance for like total healing reconciliation. She's done a lot of that after he's passed. For the other, even in life, it just never totally happened. And
Mm.
yet I triggered those wounds in them. And yet we always continue to heal that, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
that didn't happen with their own parents, but it happens with me. So
Mm.
that's the thing. Sometimes it's like these challenges come up because it's
Mm.
inviting you to heal
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
that particular
Totally.
energy is.
Totally. I mean, the journey is about healing all the time.
Mm,
Yeah.
And I look at her and I'm just like, wow, she's just so like me. We have literally nearly all the numbers very similar. It's like it's only like 3 or something that is not the same. And I can just see how she's this like copy of me, and how I can just maybe, well, I'm guiding her really to do a lot better than I did at that age. Do you know what I mean? Because she's fairly young still, but she's very open to all the different commodities and the things that I do. So yeah. So it's
that's so beautiful.
wonderful.
Yes, that's amazing. And here's the thing, we know we pick our parents, right?
Mm,
So she picked you and she picked her name
she picked her name.
perfectly for her soul's journey and her interaction with you.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, she chose you for the challenging aspects, but
Yeah.
she also chose you knowing I have a mother and possibly father, because I don't know your husband's
No,
dynamic
he's
and
really
his
spiritual
spirituality.
and everything, but
Beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
So
she knew.
she chose you specifically knowing I'm going to bring in all these 10-1s. I'm going to bring in the most high frequency energy, something that's going to be this huge thing to like overcome out of my challenges. But I chose this mother who is awakened, aware, spiritual, and will help guide me. So I don't
Mm.
have to deal with all the craziness or all the heavy burden I may have had to deal had I had a parent who wasn't as aware.
Oh my God.
Okay, so
Exactly.
not only are you awakened and spiritual and you can see things from a different point of view, but you
Mm.
also have this beautiful soul contract knowledge where you're like, I see how this is working out. And now as
Mm.
a parent, because this happens with me and my daughter too, we
Mm.
have clashing sixes, right? So it's
Ah.
okay. So when I see, just like you see the moment is starting where it could easily go like this, and you're like,
Yes.
nope, I know
Yeah.
better, and I'm going to redirect it to where she feels she wins. I feel
Mm,
I win, and overall the situation's a win because we don't
mm,
have to have that friction or that
mm,
tough, challenging moment.
exactly.
And it's just so beautiful.
It is so beautiful. And do you know what I've realized as well? So, okay, so she is getting older, she is getting more mature, and you can kind of reason and talk to her now a little bit more in depth. But what I've realized is that I'm much more capable to hold the space and to navigate the situation in a really like super conscious way of parenting
Mm.
when I'm fully rested, when I'm fully taking care of myself, when I'm fully like doing those things that I advocate all my clients that they should be doing, and I am good at it. Like I really am so good at feeling in. But there's been times where I've been, stretched and I feel tired and I feel like it's too much, and I have snapped at her and I've been angry as well, two 10 ones. I know the sixes is obviously that sort of ball to ball, but 10 ones are like explosions, like
Yeah,
really angry. So we've had those. There's been a few, like, I'm not worried, like long term for her, like trauma or anything like that.
right.
But I just know that as a parent, and this just generally to any parent out there, get to know your numbers, take good self-care, because when you do, you can just navigate those situations 9 times of 10 pretty good, because your cup is full, you know.
Yep.
So that's just a recommendation for parent recommendation. Yeah.
Well, for
Yeah.
the 10-1, I'm curious, how else some of those challenges might have come up in your life. Like I know for myself in the past year, especially, so, you do divine healing. I took my first divine healing training last summer.
Mm,
And in the time that I've been doing those for myself, around that time is when I had my first optimized name come to me, which had a 10-1 in physical karma and 10-1 spiritual goal. So I knew that 10-1 energy was coming up more. And so I definitely was seeing that and already aware of it, and then seeing that come up in my divine healing sessions. And some of those challenges can be the perfectionism, and being overly critical.
mm,
Those are huge ones for me. And there's also the going between extremes. Like I find myself right, it's 0 or 100. It's black or it's white. Like where's the gray? Where's all the
mm,
other numbers in between? So those going between. And so like kind of part of that going between the extremes is especially when it comes to beliefs, and then like a lot of self-doubt, because it's like you really believe in yourself and then you don't believe in yourself at all, or you
mm.
believe in something and then you don't believe it at all. So I'm curious, some of those other challenges, what are the ones that have maybe been bigger themes in your own life?
Yeah, so I was bullied as a child. So I had that,
Mm,
where I was feeling, I was always so quiet, sevens as well. So physical karma sevens. So I
Me
would
too.
just go into like insular sort of dream world and just not saying things, like internalize everything. 10 10 1. So then there was a moment in life, I think I was about 13, maybe 12, 13. And I had these occurring bullying situations
mm,
throughout since I was about 7. So it wasn't continuously for 6 years. It was like on, off, like this. And I remember, and at the time, obviously, I didn't know anything about energy or, like that. Wouldn't be able to say that word even. But anyway, I made a decision, an internal decision. And also remember, I never told my mum knew about the things, but not all of them, but she knew. My dad didn't. I didn't have that relationship with him then, but I was very close to him, but I didn't talk to him about that. So I had no one to really ask. But I decided I'm going to step into my power. Maybe that wasn't the word, but I'm going to make sure this stops. I'm going to decide now that I can do this. So there was this one boy that he used to call me names and like sort of say things about my face, and he would say something about my lips or my cheeks, and he would say the things that he had himself, like
mm-hmm.
he
Mm.
had very sort of round cheeks, and like so he would say things about that because that was his own reflection of himself, right? So I was like, this is interesting how he's calling me these names and he's doing these things to me. And he is the one who looks like that. Isn't that interesting here? How he has to project that at me. But this is in my head. So I thought, well, if I say that, and if I find words how to say that and really step in, I didn't say step into my power, but like find words to really speak the truth, because it's integrity as well, right? With a 10-1.
Yep.
And I found really a moment I had decided what I was going to say, and I was going to say something about that. There was him that, the very reason you say that to me is because you have a huge issue with that yourself, blah, 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 whatever. And the reasons you say that is because you have these problems, like, whatever. I can't remember exactly what I said. And that's because you want to try to hide it. And so I basically just like nailed it in 3 sentences. And he was just like completely sort of thrown back. He never came near me again because he wouldn't, you know what I mean? He was like, that she knows everything about me. It's like, oh my God, obviously, but I must have used my just my intuitive abilities at the time as well. But I remember then, since then, it never happened again. No one ever tried to approach me in that way again. And I think there was an energetic shift. And I think this is with the 10-1. As soon as you claim your sovereignty and you claim your it's not even worth, it's like your own, who you are, and you claim
Yeah.
that sovereignty, it is an energy that people feel. And so you're not easy to pick on. You can't be picked on then. And I think that shift, I've guided my daughter a lot with that shift. So she suffered a lot more with that than I did. But I've been trying to sort of really guide her to step into that energy. And it's not an easy thing, because I remember making a decision in my head that if I don't do this, people will be picking on me. I'd be the victim all the time. I will be the one that is always like at the back. And I'm like, no. And so that was I don't know if you call it a soul decision, or, my soul kind of stepped in, or, it's higher power stepping in to like, just say, look, this is enough. So I think anyone with 10-1s who are listening, yes, we need healing, and we need, support in those places where we feel like we have a trauma or things have happened. But there is also, if you can tap in to the energy, the powerful energy of each number, what it really holds, that positive vibration of it, you can literally, absorb that, embody that, and go, right, this is what I'm doing. This is me. And I think that's an important piece, to remember the frequencies and feeling into those frequencies, and basically go, this is me. I'm claiming it, basically. Yeah. Don't know if you've had
Wow.
any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fairly, I feel like I'm trying to think if I've ever had a moment like that. Like, I think the way it does tend to show up in my life more is certainly, because we've talked about the father wound, but, the one is also the authority. And so it can also just generally be sort of that disempowerment from authority
Mm,
that you were
yeah.
mentioning before, and especially male authority figures or just male figures in your life. Sometimes I've heard people talk about it's their brother,
Yeah.
right? Or it's a teacher, it's a boss. It can
Mm-hmm.
be lots of different people.
Mm,
And I when I think about for myself how that shows up more, as also I'm trying to think about a moment of maybe stepping into power, but I think for me it's more that I on the one hand, and I talked about this when we had our 7-7 episode with Lauren Calvert about, it's very kind of the mask of the good girl, right? I'm gonna show you that. That's what you expect to see. And yet when it has come to male authority, those were the ones that I was like, I don't know that I respect your authority. Like, I'm gonna push back, I'm gonna question, but not in the same way of like kind of really being disempowered. I'm going to stand up to it, but more of just like, I'm going to be a little bit bratty to you as my teacher and just like
mm,
not
mm.
not be the good girl. I'm going to be like talk back and things like that. So a little bit different, but I can see the connection into the energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about
Well,
you, Yana?
what I was gonna say was, for me, primarily it is the father wound. Okay. But what's interesting is the 10-1 brings in, as a female, it brings in these masculine qualities in you. So you're the leader, you're the doer, and I've witnessed that in all my friendships, my relationships. I'm constantly doing. And I have to consciously tell myself, sit in your feminine, sit in your feminine. Let people do for you. You can't always be doing, because when you're always doing, you can't receive. So that has been such a huge thing for me, where it's like, okay, I'm only going to be the masculine in my work, and everything else I'm going to sit back and I'm just going to be open to receiving and sit in that feminine and just enjoy that, because I do always do. And for many times it'd be like, you're not doing it the right way. Let me just do it myself, because my way is the best way, right? Which is this pure like 10-1, like I'm just going to
It's
do it because you just
perfectionism
can't.
as well, isn't
Yes,
it? Yeah.
totally.
Well,
Mm.
it's
And
Virgo
what's
energy. So
Yes.
for
And
those
what's
who know
funny,
astrology.
yes. And what's funny is that power element, right? It's so easy to misuse
Mhm.
that power. And this is a joke between a girlfriend of mine. She's very successful in her own right, spiritually, financially, in her business, everything. And every time we talk about anything that involves power, her first thought is, man, what I would do having that kind of power. She wouldn't act on it, right? Because she sits in her integrity all day long. But the thought comes to her like, man, if I had that kind of power, I could X, Y, and Z. Right. So it's like you have to, with this 10-1 comes so much power. It's this super
Mm.
high frequency energy. And it's like that integrity part is so important, because
Yeah.
it's so easy to step into that ego and to abuse that power.
Mm.
Um, Probably way more if it's in a spiritual, if it's in a karmic placement, right? It's
Yeah.
that like abuse of power. So because though it is of such high frequency, it is such a godlike energy, it's as if spirit needs you to build this beautiful, very, very strong mind so you could tap into the gift. So let's talk about the beauty of the 10-1, right?
Yeah.
Highly intuitive, very sensitive, natural healer, service to self, or service, not service to self, service to others. That's a huge one for
Sure.
me. I love being of service to other people.
Yeah.
If it's like that small little thing, it brings me so much joy. And
Mm.
that is such a huge part of it. But this natural healer, right? And these like beautiful spiritual energies that just come down once you have built this beautiful mind and the strong mind that, okay, I will step into integrity, then it's almost like source is like, okay, girlfriend, you got it. Let's bring it all in and let's help you step
Mm.
into that power.
Mm.
Right. So
Yeah. I mean,
it's a journey.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think absolutely. And my 10-1 journey with the spiritual, like the spiritual karma is, yes, it's the father wound, it's the disempowerment, the bullying, those things. I had to do my money journey with that as well. So that being in service, completely earning the money from being in service, as opposed to like, how much cash can we make on this? And it's not exactly misusing your power, but it's like, it's that shift of you're in service and you bring that energy of high levels of service and you will make shit tons of cash basically. Like, do you know what I mean? So it's like that
Yeah.
difference to shifting that. So I did that journey as well of just really tapping into the heart, like to not try to make shortcuts basically. It's like about integrity. 10-1s have to work hard, but that's also for me, I'm like, working hard is old paradigm to me. So I'm like, how can I work smart? Maybe, I don't
Work
mind.
smarter, not
Yeah,
harder.
I don't mind putting the work in. And I think that's interesting actually. How's that changed? So I used to work too hard. I also have a 12-3 in physical talents. So it's like spinning the wheels
Yeah.
and then having to work really hard to get somewhere sometimes. I have an old 21-3 in my old overlay from Sweden years ago. So
Mm.
anyway, gone long time ago. Anyway, so the 10-1, what I noticed then now, how that plays out, which is really interesting, is I do things it's not perfectionism as in like it has to be perfect, and I'm really stressed if it's not. It's more like how can I make that meticulously sophisticated, beautifully presented with excellence, like that?
Mm.
That's the 10-1 energy for me right now. And I love that. I love that energy. How can I create something so potent and so beautiful and so meticulous and like so amazing and in service, right? That I love, because that's like, that is really what the 10-1 is about. And I think also it's when it comes to business, 10-1 is high levels, it is excellence. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
are delivering a high levels of service, you're working from a high level of integrity. It is all about that. And yeah, so I'm just loving that. I'm writing a lot at the moment, and I'm just loving the element of writing all the things that I want to say in a very high level way of servicing people. Like, do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So it's so many amazing things that can come out of the 10-1, definitely. And how it plays out throughout as you grow as well, as a person and as a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
So mm,
And it's so interesting, Jenny, because you talk so much about, the new earth paradigm. You talk about that shift. And again, I think it's so poignant with the 10-1 energy, because on the one hand, again, the one is the divine masculine. We're leaving part of the old paradigm, again, is that more masculine dominated energy into more of a feminine dominated energy. And as you said as well, it's sort of like, oh, that hard work, having to work hard is kind of part
yes,
of the old and into the new. But then again, there are also parts of the 10-1 that I think are very much part of the new earth paradigm, that high
yes,
frequency energy, especially the ability to manifest. Are you someone
yes,
who like thinks about, manifesting a lot, or you can see that coming out in your life?
yes,
Like, talk about that
absolutely.
manifestation element.
I literally think, do you know, check this out. This is how manifestation works. So I was thinking, or have been channeling lately, and I can share this with you guys because like you get it. So I'm just sitting there with the energy, and I'm like, okay, so we were channeling, do some channeling actually in the Connected Soul Club. And what was coming in, and this has been also knocking on my door a little bit, about how do I serve global leaders? How do I get to the global leaders? Like, how do I find them? Like, I am at grassroots level. I mean, let's be honest here, I'm at grassroots level still, I'm not a global leader yet, right? But
Mhm.
I'm like, how can I get to them? How can I coach them? How can I mentor them? How can I help them bring their vibration to the highest level possible that they can actually hold at this point in this timeline right now? And then like literally 2 hours later, I get an email. I can't remember what they're called now. I've never kind of heard of them because I don't do Silicon Valley, but
Mm.
like I don't even watch the news yet, right? But I got this email from Silicon. It wasn't Silicon Valley. It's a business magazine. It's like Entrepreneur. It's like Forbes.
Yeah.
That type of publication. An invitation to write the 5 most influential for empowerment female leaders to look out for in 2024. And they asked me.
I love
It's like that,
that.
Wow.
literally. And then they go, so this is your audience. If you are thinking about this is your audience. If this is your audience, they are business owners and obviously high level founders, CEOs, and global, people. And it's 170,000 of these people that are in the physical publications. They get it in their home. And there are 5 million that gets this publication online. And they are
Wow.
all like, I don't know, 8-figure earners, like literally. And it's not about just the money, but what I was seeing was that if conscious people, like the global, like leaders, have a desire to make a higher impact positively, and they have the right guidance from a high level vibrational leader or mentor that can guide them through that so that they can get through, because they might get carried away with their ego still, and we can all do maybe, but and I was like, that's rapid manifestation. So I haven't
Mhm.
written to them yet because I'm sitting on it because I got an 11.2. So I received it Friday. So I shall wait till Monday because, if we respond too quickly with the 11.2, it might go a bit wrong. So this is the thing. So I was like, yeah, so Spirit is telling me to do it. Because and so yes, that is rapid manifestation. I was thinking about it, and then the email dropped in.
Okay, so
Wow.
here's what is coming to mind for me. The law of reciprocity, which has been a huge thing that just keeps popping up for me lately. And it's
Mm,
about you can always give, but are you actually open to receiving? Right. And it's like when you shift that mindset and remove that block that keeps you from receiving, that
mm,
law of reciprocity is like, oh, you keep giving, let me give you, and
yes.
now it comes back to you. And now
Hmm.
it's like pouring in, and it's like the universe is in love with you because you're just getting it from every direction. And it's a mind shift.
Yeah.
That's how simple it is. It's like when you listen
And
to,
yeah, no, carry on. Yeah.
no, it's like when
Mm,
you listen to Esther Hicks and she's like, when you're in the vortex, and she's all about law of attraction. And I'm
yeah.
like, what is this vortex and how do I get in it? And then one day it registered, oh, I have to be in the frequency of this thing. But
Mm,
then there's so much that comes to it. So that law of reciprocity wants you to be consciously and unconsciously open to that receiving. And it's
mm.
like you put it out there and then they go, here you go. Here you
Yeah.
go.
There it
But are
is.
you going to
There it
catch
is.
it? Are you going to catch
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Do you feel worthy to have that? Because you can have
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
so I
Exactly.
love
And do
that.
you know what I love? And do you know what? It was so interesting. Maybe it was the Thursday I got it because the next day she said, we are so used to reminding people, and I don't want you to miss this one. Just make sure you've got it. And I, I responded back to her, I am thinking about it. I'll get back to you soon. She's like, that's wonderful. Hopefully that's a positive response. And that was it. But it was interesting how I stayed in sovereignty to go, I need to wait till Monday or next week, whatever. It's not no rush because my 12.3 would be like, yeah, expand. 11.2, let's do it now. Like impulsive. And I'm like, 10.1 goes, stay in your power. Like stay in your stability of of the higher vision that you're holding. Just take a deep breath. And this, so it's, I just love following numbers basically. I just, and how I work with them every day in that way, literally. Yeah. It's powerful. And everyone in the world needs this, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
Yeah.
they need these numbers. Yeah. So
Listen, if we all stepped into our power from a place of integrity, can
mm,
you imagine what this world would look like? Now, that's not to say that, like, I mean, we sit here and we're talking about it, but it's like, yeah, we even have moments. You have moments of like being in disempowerment or stepping out of
mm,
integrity, and it's about
mm,
catching it. And you're like,
mm,
okay, this is not the thing that I should be engaging in or participating in or leading in or any of that. And it's about
mm,
removing yourself back to that place of integrity.
mm,
Because just like with everything in life, it's so easy to fall off. You just got to get
mm.
back on. And it's okay. Give
Yeah.
yourself that grace
Yes. Be
and just get
soft on
back on.
yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Especially
with
the
a
10 ones.
10.1,
Yes.
oh my God, so hard on yourself. I've been so hard on myself. I see my daughter being very hard on herself. There's my son, he's got no 10.1s. He's like, what are you worried about? Just chill out. No, hang on, two. Yeah, he's got two 13.4s. Like
Mm.
he is just
Mm.
8s, 6s, just chilled. Like he's good.
He's got 8 6s.
Yeah, not 8s and 6s, but
Oh,
6s in like
eights and
spiritual
sixes. Got it.
spiritual talents. He's so artistic. He's got 8s in soul destiny. He's like super chilled, 13.4s everywhere, like just. And she's like, I have to work so hard. He's like, you just chill. I'm just gonna do the minimum for maximum. Like minimum for maximum result.
That's my mentality. Although not
not
not it
not in
hasn't
a not in
always
a funny
been.
way.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, no. But with the 10, that's what I was going to say. Self-love, I think, is the most important thing for the 10.1 because the 10.1 is so hard on ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves, and it's almost like you've got to give yourself a break, right?
Hmm.
Because you could be so
Yes.
perfectionist, so hard on yourself, working so hard, being so diligent, because that's another word actually, being so diligent, because if you
Yeah.
feel like you're in service and you want to help other people, because that's really what you want to do with the 10-1 as well. It's like that diligence. It's like I'm there on time always. I'm doing the work. I'm there. I'm showing up, sort of thing. And I think that can be exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to give ourselves a break. Give ourselves a break.
Yeah, they can have heavy judgmental energies. And that's something that I see a lot, when you are able to kind of take that step back and observe. It's like you see people judging themselves, judging others. And that's part of, I think, where, as we're talking about, if we could all have the integrity, it's like, well, if we could all be a little less judgmental of ourselves and of
Yes.
others,
Yes.
where could
Exactly.
we be? Right.
Mm,
And I think that's one of the things that was something I really diligently put into practice last year, was being kind to myself,
mm,
noticing when those judgments would come up, noticing when the self-criticism would come up, and just be kind. Yep,
mm,
this might not be perfect, but be kind. And
mm,
through that diligent effort, I do see now that it doesn't take as much effort to be kind to myself. It is more automatic. It's like,
mm.
oh, yep, that's what happened. Okay, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to get on myself and beat myself
Yeah.
up like I would have even last year. It really took that diligence, though, to like
Mm,
shift that thinking in my
mm,
head, because that can be so strong with this energy.
yeah. No, the softness. I mean, we know that 13-4 softens the 10-1, but I think
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't have a 13-4 in your chart, and if it's not in your overlay, you can still bring that soft, loving, surrendering, sort of, nurturing energy in, to just go, it's okay. It's not the end of the world, it's going to be fine. But it's interesting with the 10-1, because what I realized as well is that, because he's holding that really high frequency energy, for my daughter, for example, she's highly sensitive. So it's a highly sensitive person. She's got her radars out everywhere. And you could almost say maybe a 5, maybe, or an 8 have that as well. But I think the 10-1 is very much like, checking everything, having everything control as well. And it's just interesting how it's playing out, how it's playing out. But yeah, softness, it's the best. And in business, this is something I realized as well. So I was driving from a masculine place, like not necessarily chasing, but like really putting the work in. And I had to really shift my energy so that I could receive more, like you said, and actually just more sit in that
Mm.
power. And then it's like magnetic as well, not in a not in a sort of, overpowering way, but just like, it's like a magnetic energy, the 10-1 as well, because somebody with 10-1 energies, they have this, it's the godlike sort of strong energies, aren't they? And use them just for being still, actually, as well. I
Mm.
recommend.
That's great. Well, any final thoughts, ladies, on this energy?
What do you say, Anna?
I feel like we really got into it,
Yeah.
and really fully encompassed it. Look, it's a beautiful energy, and I think just like every other energy, what's so great about it is it's so easy to think about the challenging aspects of it, but when you
Mm,
tap into that beautiful positive side of connection to source and your natural healing, your service to others, that also, if you have a 10-1 in, depending on the placement, it's like sometimes it's like, we, this is going to sound weird, but it's not that you don't have a physical talent or a purpose. Your sole purpose is to be service to others.
yes.
You are here to
Yeah.
change the world. You're here to bring this high level. You're here to like raise the frequency, raise the consciousness, like all of that. It's bring it out there. And it's like, just by living your life, just by being who you are and connected to source on
Mm,
your spiritual journey,
mm,
people around you, they feel it, they connect to it. And sitting in that beautiful power, spiritual power of it is just, it doesn't just heal you, it heals those around you. And,
exactly.
it's like this trickle effect, and it just keeps going out, ripple effect.
Mm.
And it just keeps going out and out. And it's like sitting in that high frequency space with your connection to source is really, if you could just do that, you've done more than enough.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. It's like the the ascended master will sit
Mm-hmm.
there on the mountain,
Mm-hmm.
and he will sit there to not maybe just not do nothing, but be there to contemplate and receive and channel and bring it down. So we can all become ascended masters.
I think my final thought, it's definitely something we've kind of talked about, but maybe not explicitly said, is that, with the 10-1, they can be very independent and really struggle with asking for help. And,
Mm,
that's something with the eights as well, that, we've talked so much about the giving, but what about the receiving? And I think especially with the 10-1, and maybe this is me and how it shows up for me, but it's almost like, I'd have to admit I'm not perfect. I'd have to admit I couldn't do it myself in order to ask for help. And so there is
mm,
that part of it. And I think this maybe comes from that
mm.
Virgo energy that makes it really hard for them to ask for help. And yet at the same time, that one is all about the unity. It's all about the connection. And so when we can really get into, again, Yana, you've really said this already about that, the receiving. And so sometimes I think in order to receive, there does have to be that ask
Yes.
to put it out that
Yeah.
you are looking for that,
Yeah.
and to not feel self-critical or judgmental that you weren't able to do it yourself, that we are connected. We're not necessarily, there's that famous African proverb, right? You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. And I think
Yeah.
that's something the 10-1 could
Yes.
do with
Exactly.
internalizing, have it up on the wall,
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful.
Gennye, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
It was such a pleasure. Please let
Mhm.
our listeners know how they can find you.
Yes. Okay. So probably best to just, well, my website, jennylion.love. I am definitely hanging out more on LinkedIn now. Not so much on Instagram. It's more like just there I am, but I'm kind of spending more time on LinkedIn. But yeah, I'm on Facebook as well. So I'm there, but
Beautiful.
website probably
All the
best or
links,
LinkedIn.
yes,
Mm.
and all the links will be in the description below for anybody who wants to connect with Gennye. She's
Yeah.
fabulous.
Oh,
Do it.
I
We recommend.
yeah, no, I gave you my link to my 7 levels of embodied leadership, which is a
Yep.
masterclass that is an on-demand class. So if anyone is interested to dive in to the masterclass, you can do that.
And of course, you have your
Beautiful.
podcast as well, if they want to listen more to that visionary New Earth leaders and
Yeah.
your thoughts there.
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
Well, for everybody, please let us know on Instagram what you thought about this conversation. If you have a 10-1, we would love to hear where that energy shows up in your life. Do you have a father wound? Are you a perfectionist, overly critical? Let us know. If you need to know if you have a 10-1 in your chart, then head over to our website, the ltvpodcast.com, to get a free copy of your chart. And again, head over to Instagram, the Let's Talk Vibes podcast, to let us know your thoughts.
And as always, everybody, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment on our content. It is the best way to support us, and we greatly appreciate it. Have a blessed day, everybody. Bye.